An overview of Philippine literature. Historically speaking, Philippine literature can be divided into three most important periods: pre-colonial, colonial, and post-colonial. Spanish colonization, such as chants, proverbs, songs, and folk narratives, are considered under pre-colonial period, which are mostly oral traditions. This is not because early Filipinos did not have system of writing yet, but due to the unavailability of printing materials. Life was simple, and so is literature during this period. If we have phones and other forms of technology to entertain us, our ancestors had literature for recreation who were noted for being music lover, as more than 10 types of songs in various Philippine languages were discovered. Our forefathers also valued words of wisdom for teaching values, as evidenced by numerous proverbs or salawikain. Storytelling was used to explain phenomenon and to teach lessons as well. Having bugtong or riddles was also a favorite pastime, and listening to narratives of bravery, magic, and heroism in epics was a box office hit. The focus of literature suddenly changed upon the arrival of Spaniards. An emphasis on morality and religion was common in literary forms such as corrido, pasyon, and sinaculo. The production of printed material started, but it was mostly of religious purposes and themes. It was made in an attempt to instill traditional Spanish ways and cultures among the native Filipinos. Despite this indoctrination, native traditions still survived and flourished, especially for areas where the colonial power was less popular. Literacy paved the way to develop sense of nationalism among Filipinos during the latter part of Spanish colonization. Filipinos started to write about oppression, corruption, and other social ills, such as in the works of Dr. Jose P. Rizal entitled No Le Mitangere and its sequel of El Filibusterismo. The literary production during the American period was inspired by the developments in education and culture. Knowledge and information became accessible to all Filipinos because of the free public education. During the apprenticeship period, the Filipino writers imitated English and American models. All forms of literature were explored by Filipino writers. During this period, short stories were the most prevalent literary form. With the new knowledge of English language, many writers started to gain recognition both locally and internationally, like Jose Garcia Villa, who earned the international title Poet of the Century as an example. Philippine literature was interrupted in its development when we were conquered by Japan between 1941 to 1945, since freedom of expression was uncommon back then. Filipino writers in the Philippines were forbidden to write anything against the government, and only who were in exile had the privilege to do so. As a result of banning the English language, short stories written in the vernaculars flourished in the country. The three most influential foreign invaders to the types of literature produced during colonial period are Spanish, American, and Japanese, wherein the common themes and subject mostly tackle about oppression, religion, freedom, or anything that reflects the experience of Filipino people under the colonizers. The influences brought to us by colonial periods are said to have been extended up to the post-colonial periods, especially in social and cultural dimensions. Post-colonial is the period after the rebirth of freedom in the Philippines up to the present. One of the most unforgotten and controversial periods during this era is having martial law during the Marcos regime. All of the periods mentioned are essential towards understanding the types of literature being produced in the Philippines.